what happened last week and the week before. 2 weeks ago, we read about the 5 barley loaves and the 2 fish that fed 5,000 people. Physical hunger. Physical, they fed the physical of the people. Last week, we were feeding our spiritual needs and seeking a new relationship with God by empowering our faith. Every day our faith grows. It doesn't stay the same. Every day maybe we find new reflections with God. I'm in awe when my neighbor is at the house. I'm watering her flowers. I'm in awe, and I still think this. God produces the flowers, and she's got beautiful roses. And this one white rose bush has pink and white in it. Now, who can make that other than our Heavenly Father? And there's so many different colors. Remember, the birds, the blue jay, especially the different blues. Only God can make those colors of feathers. So having a new, it seems like every day I see a new relationship I have with God, because I'm experiencing and I'm aware of the little things He leaves around. The Jews began to complain about Jesus. He didn't come from heaven. We know all about him. He's Mary and Joseph's boy, a carpenter from Nazareth. They know facts about Jesus, but they don't really know him or where he comes from. Bread of life. He doesn't look a thing like the bread that their ancestors have eaten, the manna. When it comes to bread, they don't expect any more than what their ancestors got. And that was manna in the wilderness. That bread that they ate, as you can recall, every day they could only collect enough for that day, and then they have to go the next day. So that it was a bread from heaven, but it wasn't sustaining their spiritual hunger. Jesus tells them to be quiet and stop complaining. Your ancestors ate the manna in the wilderness and died. I am the living bread that comes down from heaven. Whoever eats of this bread will live forever. And the bread that I will give for the life of the world is my flesh, his death on the cross and his resurrection. Jesus offers them a choice: living bread or manna, filling your spiritual hunger or your physical hunger, life or death. This is the same choices he sets before each and every one of us. On the surface, it seems to be a conflict between Jesus and the Jews. In reality, the conflict is not outside of the Jews, but within them. That's how it is with conflict. It originates within us and gets projected out and fought with one another. The conflict for the Jews is not so much about Jesus, but about their frame or reference, the box that they had put and created God in. Jesus is challenging them to step outside of the established, comfortable, and familiar context that they have created for themselves. He refuses to be limited either by their understanding or their misunderstanding. He invites them to a new life, a larger life, a life that springs from but is not bound by the past or context they have created for themselves. He invites them to eat new bread. This reminds me of when we get a new priest, and I'm not saying here, but other parishes I were in, the priest was there for 20 years and he finally had to retire. And the first thing that came out of some parishioners' mouth, and we probably all said it, we never did things that way. We get in that same mold, that same box, and stay there. Maybe the new priest has new ideas. Maybe we will like the new ideas. It's like a form of opinion inside before we know what's happening outside. I was laughing to myself. I bet on every priest's tombstone in the back, it says, but we never done it that way. Okay. When John speaks of the Jews, he is not referring to the Jewish people individually or collectively. He is referring to any person or group who opposes Jesus, who refuses to see and understand the signs, who would separate the gift of bread from the giver of life, putting Jesus in that box. The Jews could be anyone who acts in this way. In this case, it just happened to be the religious leaders and authorities of Jesus' day. We are not so different as the Jews. When we live only from personal frame, understanding of God, we live hungry, empty lives. We work for manna rather than opening ourselves to receive the gift of the bread of life, new faith, new relationship with God. Often the things we have done and left undone prevent us from eating the bread of life. Sometimes our patterns of thinking, believing the way we see the world, each other, or ourselves convinces us there is no other bread and we should just settle for the old manna our ancestors ate in the wilderness. Other times our history, our fears, our anxieties, our guilt, our regrets, pain, and our losses become firmly established. We are deceived into believing that we are not even hungry. The table of God is set, and there is a place for each one of us. We are not destined to eat manna the rest of our lives. Our frame of mind, our past, our history, neither earn us nor keep us from the bread of life. Rather, the living bread has come down from heaven to feed each and every one of us. Every day, God invites us to new bread, new beginnings, new faith, to step out of the old box into a new way of living and being. God gives us bread from heaven, knowing we are hungry. Our conflicts, our restlessness, our deep longing, our desire to love and be loved are hunger pains by which the Father draws us to his Son, the one who said, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never be hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty. Amen. Okay, I found a little article again that ties all this together. I do a lot of research looking for other things that tie us together. A Feast of Love. This is a Danish film. I think it was made in 1986, and it won the Academy Award for foreign films. And it was a Danish film called Babette's Feast. A French refugee. She left France because I don't know who was empowering the French during that time, but for her safety, she left France, and she was a refugee, and he appears in a coastal village run by two elderly sisters, leaders of the community's religious life, take her in, and for 14 years, Babette works as her housekeeper. This was a small congregation of 12 people. Does that sound familiar? Oh. And the sister's father started that. And it was his 100th, no, actually he wasn't there, but his 100th birthday was coming up, so they wanted to celebrate. And it's a very poor congregation. They did not believe in extravagant meals, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, they took her in as a housekeeper. When Babette comes into a large sum of money, which came into her cousin in France, every year would automatically buy her something like a lottery ticket. Well, she never won. This year, she won. They sent her the money. A lot of big sum of money. She invites the congregation of 12 to join her for an extravagant French meal, because she's from France, of caviar, quail, and puff pastry, and more. Can you imagine? As they move from one course to the next, we're grumbling because they think this money should be spent some other way, okay? The guests relaxed. Some found forgiveness, some found love rekindled, and some began recalling miracles they witnessed and truths they learned in childhood. Remember what we were taught, they say? Little children, love one another. When the meal ends, Babette reveals to the sisters that she spent all she had on food. She gave everything, including any chance in returning to her old life as an acclaimed chef in Paris that they did not know, so that her friends eating might feel their hearts open. Jesus appeared on earth as a stranger and servant, and he gave everything so that our spiritual hunger might be satisfied. In John's gospel, he reminds his listeners that when their ancestors wandered hungrily in the wilderness, God provided quail and bread. That food satisfied for a time, but Jesus promises that those who accept him as the bread of life will live forever. His sacrifice satisfies our spiritual cravings. Dear Jesus, thank you for giving your body and blood for us. Amen. Please stand if you're able. The Apostles' Creed will say together.